What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what he thinks is a routine interview, only to find himself face to face with a host determined to tear him down on live television? The answer will shock you, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why Michael B. Jordan was permanently banned from The View after what many are calling the most explosive confrontation in daytime television history. Make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think really went down that day. It was supposed to be a simple promotional appearance. Michael B. Jordan had just wrapped filming on his latest project, and his publicist had booked him on The View to discuss his career, his philanthropy work, and his upcoming films. The actor arrived at the studio that morning in good spirits, having done hundreds of these interviews over the years. He knew the format, he knew the hosts, and he expected the usual softball questions about his workout routine, his love life, and his plans for the future. But from the moment Michael walked onto that set, something felt different. The usual warm greetings from the other hosts seemed forced, and Joy Behar, who was scheduled to conduct the main interview, barely looked up from her notes when he took his seat. The audience applauded enthusiastically, as they always did for the charismatic actor, but there was an underlying tension that even the studio audience could feel. "So, Michael," Joy began, her voice carrying an edge that immediately put everyone on alert. "Let's talk about your latest film. Another action movie where you play the hero. Don't you think it's time you challenged yourself with something more, shall we say, intellectually demanding?" The question caught Michael off guard. It wasn't the typical opening question, and there was something in Joy's tone that suggested she wasn't looking for a genuine answer about his craft. The other hosts exchanged glances, sensing that this interview was about to take an unexpected turn. "Well, Joy," Michael replied, maintaining his professional composure, "I've actually been very selective about the roles I choose. Each project has allowed me to explore different aspects of storytelling, and I think audiences appreciate seeing characters they can connect with, regardless of the genre." Joy leaned back in her chair, a slight smirk playing across her face. "Connect with? You mean like all those young women who follow you around social media? Is that the kind of connection you're referring to?" The question was clearly designed to provoke, and the other hosts looked uncomfortable. Whoopi Goldberg shifted in her seat, while Sunny Hostin raised her eyebrows in surprise. This wasn't the direction anyone had expected the interview to go, and it was clear that Joy had her own agenda. "I'm grateful for all my fans," Michael responded carefully, "and I try to use my platform to promote positive messages and support causes I believe in. That's what I consider meaningful connection with an audience." "Oh, please," Joy interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "Let's cut through the PR speak. You're a good-looking guy who makes movies for teenagers. When are you going to do something that actually matters? When are you going to use your influence for something more substantial than selling movie tickets?" The studio fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed taken aback by Joy's aggressive approach. Michael's jaw tightened slightly, but he maintained his composure, though it was clear that his patience was beginning to wear thin. "I've been involved in numerous charitable organizations," Michael said, his voice steady but with a hint of steel creeping in. "I've donated millions to education programs, I've supported criminal justice reform, and I've used my production company to create opportunities for underrepresented voices in Hollywood. I'm not sure what more you think I should be doing." Joy laughed, a sound that felt harsh and mocking in the tense atmosphere of the studio. "Throwing money at problems isn't the same as real activism, Michael. Where were you during the protests? Where were you when real change was happening? You were probably in your trailer getting ready for another superhero movie." The accusation was not only unfair but completely inaccurate, and everyone in the studio knew it. Michael had been very public about his support for social justice causes, had participated in peaceful demonstrations, and had been vocal about issues affecting the Black community. Joy's attack seemed personal and deliberately provocative. "I think you might be confusing me with someone else," Michael replied, his voice now carrying a warning tone. "I've been very active in supporting social justice causes, both publicly and privately. I don't feel the need to publicize every charitable act or every demonstration I attend." "How convenient," Joy shot back. "The private activist. The humble philanthropist. Tell me, Michael, do you think your fans would still adore you if they knew what you were really like behind the scenes?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon, The other hosts looked mortified, and Whoopi finally attempted to intervene. "Joy, maybe we should." "No, let her finish," Michael interrupted, his eyes now locked on Joy's. "I'd like to hear what she thinks she knows about me behind the scenes." Joy's eyes gleamed with what looked like malicious satisfaction. She had clearly been building toward this moment, and she wasn't about to back down now. "I've heard things, Michael. Stories from people who've worked with you. Stories about demands, about diva behavior, about how you treat people when the cameras aren't rolling." "What stories?" Michael asked, his voice dangerously quiet. The studio was so silent, you could hear the air conditioning humming. "And from whom?" "I protect my sources," Joy replied smugly. "But let's just say that not everyone thinks you're as wonderful as your public image suggests. Some people think you're just another entitled actor who believes his own hype." Michael leaned forward in his chair, and for the first time since the interview began, Joy looked slightly less confident. There was something in his eyes that suggested she might have pushed too far, but she seemed determined to continue her attack regardless of the consequences. "You want to talk about entitled behavior, Joy?" Michael's voice cut through the studio's silence like a blade. "Let's talk about a host who ambushes her guests with unsubstantiated rumors and personal attacks instead of conducting a professional interview. Let's talk about someone who seems more interested in creating controversy than having an actual conversation." Joy's confidence wavered for just a moment before she doubled down. "I'm asking the hard questions that other interviewers are too scared to ask. That's what journalism is about." "Journalism?" Michael let out a laugh that contained no humor whatsoever. "You call spreading gossip and making personal attacks journalism? You haven't asked me a single substantive question about my work, my projects, or anything remotely professional. This feels more like a personal vendetta than an interview." The other hosts were frozen in their seats. Sunny Hostin looked like she wanted to crawl under the table, while Whoopi kept glancing between Michael and Joy as if watching a tennis match that was getting increasingly violent. The camera operators had stopped their usual movements, afraid to miss a single moment of what was becoming television history. "I don't have personal vendettas," Joy snapped, her voice rising. "I have standards, and I think the public deserves to know who they're really supporting when they buy tickets to your movies." "What standards?" Michael shot back, his composure finally beginning to crack. "The standard of attacking someone's character without evidence? The standard of making accusations you can't back up? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you invited me here specifically to tear me down." "Maybe I did," Joy replied, and the admission sent shockwaves through the studio. "Maybe someone needs to hold you accountable for the image you project versus who you really are." "Who I really am?" Michael stood up from his chair, and for a moment, everyone thought he was going to walk off the set. Instead, he remained standing, looking down at Joy with an intensity that made the entire studio hold its breath. "You don't know anything about who I really am. You don't know about the hours I spend mentoring young actors. You don't know about the families I've helped when their children were sick. You don't know about the scholarships I've funded, or the communities I've supported." "Sit down, Michael," Joy commanded, but her voice lacked its earlier authority. "No, I don't think I will," Michael replied calmly. "Because I'm starting to understand what this is really about. You're upset that I didn't respond to your interview request the way you wanted. You're upset that my team chose other shows over yours for major announcements. This isn't about journalism or standards. This is about your ego." Joy's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "How dare I what? Tell the truth? You've spent the last 10 minutes attacking my character, my work ethic, and my integrity without a single shred of evidence to support your claims. You've made this personal from the moment I sat down. So yes, I'm going to call it What It Island." Whoopi finally found her voice. "Maybe we should take a commercial break." "No," both Michael and Joy said simultaneously, neither willing to back down from the confrontation that had consumed the studio. "You think you're untouchable?" Joy continued, her voice dripping with venom. "You think because you're young and successful and good-looking that you can just coast through life without anyone questioning your motives." "My motives?" Michael's voice was incredulous. "What motives? Making movies? Supporting causes I believe in? Trying to use whatever platform I have To make a positive impact? If those are questionable motives, then I guess I'm guilty as charged. Don't play innocent with me. Joy spat. Everything you do is calculated. Every charitable donation, every public appearance, every relationship. It's all designed to maintain your image. You know what, Joy? You're absolutely right about one thing. I am calculated. I'm calculated about how I treat people with respect. I'm calculated about using my success to lift others up. I'm calculated about not using my platform to tear people down for entertainment. Maybe you should try being a little more calculated about how you treat your guests. The studio audience, which had been silent throughout the exchange, began to murmur. Some were clearly uncomfortable with Joy's approach, while others seemed energized by the unprecedented drama unfolding before them. Don't lecture me about how to do my job, Joy fired back. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. Then maybe it's time you remembered what professionalism looks like. Michael replied without missing a beat. Because this isn't it. This is a host using her position to bully a guest for personal satisfaction. Bully. Joy's voice reached a new octave. I'm holding you accountable. For what? For being successful? For being liked by my fans? For getting roles in movies? What exactly am I being held accountable for that requires this level of hostility? Joy opened her mouth to respond. But for the first time since the interview began, she seemed to be struggling for words. Her accusations had been vague and personal, and when challenged directly, she couldn't articulate exactly what Michael had done wrong. You just think you're better than everyone else, she finally managed. And even she seemed to realize how weak it sounded. No, Joy, I don't think I'm better than anyone. But I do think I deserve basic respect as a human being and as a guest on your show. And right now, you're not giving me either. The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point. The other hosts looked mortified, the audience was buzzing with uncomfortable energy, and the production team was clearly struggling with whether to cut to commercial or let the confrontation continue. But neither Michael nor Joy seemed ready to back down, and what happened next would change everything. You know what, Michael? Joy's voice took on a dangerously quiet tone that somehow felt more threatening than her earlier outbursts. Since you want to talk about respect, let's talk about the respect you showed to the crew on your last film. Let's talk about how you kept everyone waiting for hours while you had your tantrum about craft services. Michael's expression changed completely. The controlled anger was replaced by something much more dangerous, genuine fury mixed with disbelief. Craft services? Are you seriously going to sit here and lie on national television? I'm not lying, Joy replied, but her voice lacked conviction. I have sources. No, you don't, Michael interrupted, his voice cutting through her words like steel. You have gossip. You have rumors. And now you're making things up entirely because you've realized you have nothing real to attack me with. Whoopi tried again to intervene. Maybe we should. Let her finish, Michael said, never taking his eyes off Joy. I want everyone to hear exactly what kind of person sits in that chair and calls herself a journalist. Go ahead, Joy. Tell everyone about these mysterious sources. Tell them about this craft services incident that never happened. Joy's composure was completely gone now. Her face was flushed, her hands were shaking slightly, and she seemed to realize she had painted herself into a corner. You think because you're some hotshot actor that you can intimidate me? I'm not trying to intimidate anyone. I'm asking you to back up your accusations with facts, something you seem incapable of doing. Fine, Joy snapped, leaning forward aggressively. You want facts? Here's a fact. You're nothing special. You're just another pretty face who got lucky. In 5 years, no one will even remember your name. The studio gasped audibly. Even for Joy, the comment was beyond the pale. The other hosts looked mortified, and several audience members could be heard expressing their shock. But Michael's response was not what anyone expected. He smiled. Not a warm smile, but the kind of cold smile that made everyone in the studio suddenly very uncomfortable. There it is, he said quietly. That's what this is really about. You're bitter. You're angry that someone half your age has achieved more success than you ever will. You're angry that audiences actually want to see me, while your ratings have been declining for years. How dare you talk about my ratings? Joy snarled. How dare I tell the truth? Your show has been bleeding viewers for months. Everyone knows it. The network knows it. And instead of trying to improve your content or your interview skills, you're sitting here trying to destroy someone else's reputation to make yourself feel better. That's enough, Joy shouted, but Michael wasn't finished. Is it enough? Because you've spent the last 20 minutes attacking my character, my work, my integrity, and my success. You've made false accusations and spread rumors. You've been unprofessional, disrespectful, and honestly, embarrassing to watch. So no, I don't think it's enough. I think you owe me and your audience an apology. I don't owe you anything, Joy shot back, her voice reaching a shriek. You're right, Michael replied, his voice returning to that dangerously calm tone. You don't owe me anything. But you owe your viewers better than this. You owe them honest journalism instead of personal attacks. You owe them professional interviews instead of ego-driven vendettas. Joy stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. I've had enough of this. You're an arrogant, entitled brat who thinks he can come on my show and disrespect me. Your show? Michael also stood, and the two faced each other across the interview table like gladiators in an arena. This is supposed to be a talk show, not the Joy Behar personal attack hour. And I haven't disrespected you. I've defended myself against your baseless accusations. You've made me look like a fool, Joy hissed. No, Joy. You've done that all by yourself. I just refused to sit here quietly while you tried to destroy my reputation for your own entertainment. The studio was in chaos now. Producers were frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, the other host didn't know where to look, and the audience was buzzing with a mixture of excitement and discomfort. This was unlike anything that had ever happened on daytime television. Security, Joy called out suddenly. I want him removed from my set. Michael laughed, a sound that contained no humor but plenty of disbelief. Security? For what? For defending myself against your attacks? For refusing to let you bully me on national television? For disrupting my show and being disrespectful to the host, Joy replied. But even as she said it, she seemed to realize how ridiculous it sounded. Disrespectful? Michael's voice rose for the first time since the confrontation began. You have got to be kidding me. You ambush me with personal attacks, you make false accusations about my character, you spread rumors and gossip, and I'm the one being disrespectful? By now, several security guards had appeared at the edges of the set, looking uncertain about what they were supposed to do. The situation was unprecedented, and no one seemed to know how to handle it. This is my show, Joy repeated, as if saying it enough times would make it true. I decide who stays and who goes. Then I'll make the decision easy for you, Michael said, straightening his jacket with deliberate calm. I'm leaving. But not because you're having me thrown out. I'm leaving because I have too much respect for myself to sit here and be abused by someone who clearly has no idea what professional journalism looks like. He turned toward the audience, and his voice carried clearly throughout the studio. I came here today, expecting to have a conversation about my work and my projects. Instead, I was subjected to a personal attack based on rumors and gossip. This is not what you deserve as viewers, and it's not what any guest should have to endure. Joy's face was purple with rage. Don't you dare address my audience. This is my show. Michael turned back to her, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. Your audience deserves better than this. They deserve hosts who ask real questions instead of spreading gossip. They deserve interviews that inform and entertain instead of attack and humiliate. And most importantly, they deserve to know that what they're watching is honest journalism, not personal vendettas disguised as entertainment. Get out, Joy screamed, pointing toward the exit. Get out of my studio right now. Gladly, Michael replied. He turned to the other hosts, who had remained silent throughout most of the exchange. Ladies, it's been interesting. I'm sorry you had to witness this. As Michael walked toward the exit, Joy wasn't finished. Don't ever think about coming back here. You're banned. Do you hear me? Banned from the view permanently. Michael stopped at the edge of the set and turned back one final time. Joy, after what I've witnessed here today, that's not a punishment. That's a blessing. The studio erupted. Some audience members applauded, others gasped, and Joy looked like she was about to have a complete breakdown. The other hosts sat in stunned silence, knowing they had just witnessed something that would be talked about for years to come. "And one more thing," Michael added, his voice carrying clearly over the noise. "When your ratings continue to drop, and when people ask why, maybe you should remember this moment. Maybe you should remember that audiences can tell the difference between real journalism and personal attacks. They can tell the difference between professional interviews and ego-driven hit jobs. And they deserve better than what you gave them today." With that, Michael B. Jordan walked off the View set for the last time, leaving behind a studio in chaos, a host having a meltdown, and a television moment that would go down in history as one of the most explosive confrontations ever caught on camera. The cameras kept rolling for several more seconds, capturing Joy's face as she realized that her attempt to humiliate one of Hollywood's biggest stars had completely backfired. Instead of destroying Michael's reputation, she had revealed her own unprofessional behavior to millions of viewers. Instead of looking like a tough journalist asking hard questions, she looked like exactly what Michael had called her: a bitter host, taking out her frustrations on a successful guest. As the show finally cut to commercial, everyone in the studio knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. The interview that was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance had become a masterclass in how not to conduct journalism, and Michael B. Jordan's permanent ban from The View had become the least of Joy Behar's problems. So what did you think about this explosive confrontation? Do you believe Michael was right to defend himself so aggressively? Or should he have handled Joy's attacks differently? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment that you won't see anywhere else.